Hello Internet, I'm Richie and welcome to Sounds of Stadia SideQuest, a show where we take a step off the critical path and explore more the video game world has to offer. And on this week's show, I'm of course joined by the one and only Mr. Chris.
Hello, Stadios.
And unfortunately, Tom couldn't make it today because I think he's spending time with family this weekend. But enough about that. On this show, we will be talking about EA's mystery games. But before that, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell for notifications of when we drop all of our content, such as the Sounds of Stadia podcast, which comes out each and every Monday on this YouTube channel and podcast services all over the globe. Always a good watch. We also have a Thursday night live stream, which we play everything from Outcasters to Resident Evil. We've just recently completed the Resident Evil 7 and the Not a Hero DLC. I'm not sure what we've done this week because, you know, I'm recording this before we've actually done the live stream.
It's yet to happen.
Yeah. Other than that, if you want to join the conversation after this, make sure you join the Discord. The link is in the description below. But as I alluded to, this week we are talking about EA's mystery games.
EA's mystery games. And by EA's mystery games, we mean the games that we were told were coming, and we kind of just kept in the lurch once again. You've got some clarity on what exactly we were told almost a year to the day, Richie.
Yes, so this is a quote. I'm about to read a quote verbatim from Phil Harrison, which was in the Stadia Connect back in April 28th, 2020. So it's basically a little over a year since this announcement. And what he said is, over the last few months, we've been constantly adding new games to Stadia. I'm really happy to announce we're bringing 5 games from EA to Stadia as part of our partnership. We currently, at the time of recording, have 3. They are FIFA 21, Jedi Fallen Order, and Madden 20.
Big titles.
The big titles, yeah.
Huge titles in the world of gaming.
3/5 of the announcement in a year. Seems lacking. So we figured what we'd do for this show is we'd maybe just speculate on what these games are, if they're still coming, and what potentially they could have been if they're not.
Yeah, speculation's always fun. And the great thing, I guess, with EA is they've got quite traditional franchises in terms of gaming. Like, there's a lot of long-standing IP that EA build on almost annually for their sports franchises, but a lot of their other ones, which we're about to talk about, cover an annual kind of repetition model as well, and it's what EA are well known for, in my opinion. But FIFA 21 just came recently, albeit a little bit late, but we did get it in the end. Jedi Fallen Order, huge title, the first one to drop on Stadia. We know it didn't use the Frostbite engine, which we figured might have been the delay, porting the engine across to the Linux format. And then we finally got Madden, prior to FIFA. So 2 big sports titles, 1 amazing AAA Game of the Year title. Yeah. So definitely not little small indie games by any stretch of the imagination, but we're still lacking. You're right, Richie. Those two titles we were promised, and they were quite tactful in not giving us a time frame. We know that the roadmap's usually quite vague and fogged up when it comes to Stadia. But what are some of the other franchises we've got to speculate on that we anticipate may come?
So is EA? Well, EA, as one of the basic tentpole publishers in the industry, have quite a lot of big franchises. Like, we've already mentioned Star Wars, but Jedi Fallen Order isn't just the end of Star Wars. They have other things in the Star Wars series, such as Battlefront. It was Battlefront 2, quite controversial when it came out. But me and you both played it, and we both enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've got the Platinum Trophy for Battlefront 2 on PlayStation, and that game, although it was marred with microtransaction kind of criticisms in the beginning, I actually didn't spend a penny extra playing that game. Love Star Wars, loved it to its absolute utmost, and it got better over time. And I know they brought it out free on Epic, I think, a couple of months back, and that saw a massive surge. And me, and I think you as well, have always been under the standing that Battlefront should just be a platform. It doesn't need to be a series of games. It should just be Star Wars Battlefront World, and it just gets additional content regarding movies and shows and whatever that may be.
I think, looking at Battlefront at the time it came out, I think it had the biggest problem sometimes I think can be the fans. I think EA wanted Battlefront to be just a multiplayer game, but the fans were so desperate at the time for a single player story mode in a Star Wars game that they started writing the story for it. And I actually think the main campaign in Battlefront 2 is 2/3 of an awesome Star Wars story. But there's that middle third, instead of following, is it Iden Versio? Yeah, instead of following her arc all the way from being part of quite high up in a special agency within the Empire to defecting and joining the rebels, they basically cut the middle part of her story out, and in terms of he's all the different heroes you could play as, and with these just seemingly one-off pointless side missions.
Yeah, once they started branching out into that, it felt like they got kind of absorbed into the massive franchise that is Star Wars, rather than focusing on a unique story for her character. And it did feel very, very broken in a way. But in regards to the franchise, I'd love to see it continue. We know EA no longer have exclusivity on it. In regards to these particular games in Stadia, I think they're probably a bit past it. I'd imagine we could see a future version of the game, but I don't think we'll see Battlefront or Squadrons, which was kind of their other smaller title, which was released just before Christmas last year. I can't see them being if EA were to pick from the top 5 they'd want to bring across, I can't really see that being one of them now. So far detached from launch.
Yeah, I think Battlefront still has a solid community, but because of the controversy of the launch, I don't think it ever did the numbers that EA expected it to do. Yeah, and I don't think that's one that if you're Google, if you're Phil Harrison and you're negotiating with EA, I don't think that's one of the 5. If you get to pick 5 titles, I don't think that's one of them. Yeah, especially because we already have a Star Wars game from
you don't want to water it down too much, but unless there was some grand scheme plan to make it go free to play, cross-play, multi-platform, maybe launching on the Nintendo Switch, something like a massive aligning of the stars and planets like that, I can't see why they would delve into an older title to bring it across.
I mean, Battlefront 2, if that came to Stadia as with cross-play enabled and as a pro title, that'd be an awesome get. But if it came across as a full-price title, I think people would just look, because of the controversy around launch, and the controversy I think was well earned. To be honest, EA shot themselves in the foot. I mean, we're talking about this was before launch that the controversy started. The backtrack on the launch, but I think we both agree that we're going to rule out Battlefront and Squadrons.
Yes, I think Jedi Fallen Order will just carry that mantle for Star Wars and EA for the foreseeable. Actually.
Yeah. I mean, I could, again, as you mentioned, I could see a Battlefront 3, potentially, coming to Stadia. But again, like all multiplayer games, it comes down to you needing crossplay for Stadia at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, certainly.
So, pick a different title, because we do have a list in front of us.
Yeah, I was thinking the ones that we should probably just get out, hopefully discuss, but get out the way early is the sports entries, because we said right at the beginning of the show, they have these serialized sports franchise, and we know we got FIFA very late. We know we got Madden late, but not as late, and they've done really well. They run great. I've played many hours of FIFA, and we all played Madden as part of one of our first looks. I would feel almost aggrieved to find out that FIFA 22 is one of the 5 games.
That would be a cop-out in my opinion.
But and then say Madden 22 was the other 2. So 2 of the empty slots are 2 repeat annual entries of a franchise. And they're perfectly in their right to do that, of course. It technically is 5 EA titles. Yeah. But I, as a consumer and as a game, would feel a bit scorned being told that it's just the next iteration of a game we've got. It would kind of be a bit like, nah.
For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to say we're going to group series together, so all the FIFA games will count as a single slot. All like Star Wars, Battlefront, and Battlefront 2, they will take up a single slot. Otherwise, you could just go, we're going to bring 5 EA FIFA games and be done with it. Yeah.
I mean, Phil did say games rather than franchises, so they could read between the lines on there. But this happened over a year ago, so deals could have changed. certain sales figures may not have been met. Like in reality, they could have had a deal where we'll bring 5, but if FIFA, Jedi Fallen Order, Madden didn't hit certain thresholds, they might have had the right to withdraw, which would suck.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, on Stadia's part, a very bad deal considering how late FIFA and Madden were. Where we were speculating, well, we're not even speculating, we were pretty much just saying that if EA are judging the platform based on FIFA and Madden sales, then they are stupid because they're bringing out so long after the game came out on other platforms. The sales would, if this was PlayStation 4, the sales would be massively down compared to where you'd expect.
Exactly, just because it's so far past the starting line.
So anyone who's interested in FIFA, probably really interested in FIFA, probably already had it by the time it came out in Stadia. There's only like people like us who were waiting, or people who don't have a different console.
Yeah.
But
so in terms of sports franchises, it could be the next annualized entry. I'd hate it to be though.
Yeah.
From my point of view.
Again, it's very much a cop out. If it's FIFA 22 and Madden 22, the two missing games, that is just a cop out. And I really doubt that would be in the plans. Because why would a year ago Phil Harrison announce 5 games if two of them were from FIFA and 2 of them were from Madden? You'd probably just announce 3 games.
Yeah, stranger things have happened though, Richie, when it comes to the world of Stadia. So, and hopefully we shouldn't have long to find out, because as we encroach on the summer, this is where we start to hear about the next entry of FIFA and the next entry of Madden and such. So we should hopefully have this clarified soon.
And again, actually, something I've realised I should point out, for the sake of this list, because we are talking about something that was announced a year ago, EA's purchase of Codemasters will not be considered.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if a new Grid game gets announced by EA, that's not part of this list. Because there's no way Phil Harrison would have known about that at the time.
Yeah, he's not savant.
But I think the next game I want to bring up, which might catch people by surprise, considering the game's been cancelled, is Anthem.
Yeah, you mentioned this one pre-show.
Yeah.
And I immediately defaulted to, well, Anthem's dead in the water. EA literally announced that they're not going to support it anymore. They're moving the staff over to other projects. And to which, again, we reminded ourselves that actually this was announced a year ago. So Anthem could have been part of the 5-game grand plan to expand Anthem, expand it to other platforms, bring in more players, introduce crossplay. And yes, several weeks ago, that was killed dead. And our Stadia going to, once again, suffer because of other business practices not going well elsewhere.
And the reason why I'm interested in Anthem is because of the way the game went, the rollout of the game, and it didn't get to do the numbers, and it had endless problems. I actually only ever played the demo of it, and it just didn't grip me at all. But that's why I think it's interesting, because if this is a game that was on the slate, it would explain why we're still stuck on free. Because one of the games that was planned, EA was spent, instead of porting it to a new platform, decided to focus on, double down on fixing the game. And when that didn't work, they pulled the plug. Yeah,
I think in an alternate world, we could be looking at, Anthem would have thrived. They would have had the support, the money plowed into it from EA to make it like the ongoing success that they probably had hoped it would be. And you're right. I think this could have came out early part of last summer, and yet it didn't. And then you're right. I think EA will have refocused, rearranged, shuffled the board a little bit. And then, it hasn't worked out. So unfortunately, Stadia, as a consequence of that, could be suffering. We've seen it happen recently with Outriders, and Stadia being the last priority on the list. And again, arguably from a business standpoint, rightly so. It's the smallest platform. It's got probably the lowest player base. So yes, I think developers rightly can focus on the behemoths that are PlayStation, Xbox, and PC ahead of Stadia. It sucks, especially when you're all playing the same price. There should be fairness across the board. But from a business standpoint, if you've got only so many employees you can put to task on these jobs, you have to make a decision. So it's a great shout. I think Anthem could have fell for other projects to survive.
Yep, and sticking with BioWare, I think this is probably the one where I actually still hold out hope on. But I hold out hope on this one purely because we know Stadia announce things at last minute, despite the fact that we all think it's stupid and better to tell people up front. I'm talking about Mass Effect, and specifically the Legendary Edition, which comes out the 14th of May on other platforms. I'm fingers crossed still this comes to Stadia, because this would be a win.
Yeah, it would be a huge get, and I think the fan base of Stadia could do with a big summer boom. We know we've got Resident Evil, that's huge. That's a whole conversation unto itself with the Premier Edition promo and the fact that we got Biohazard this month for free. That's wonderful, but yeah, imagine the get going into summer that would be for Stadia. Say look, we've got Mass Effect Legendary, which is in itself 3 AAA titles, albeit older ones. They are big games.
Yeah, but I honestly expect this to be in the Game of the Year discussions. I think some publications might be, well, it's just it's a remaster, remake, or whatever it is, and turn it down. But Mass Effect has such a good legacy and such a beloved franchise that I think this is going to be one of the biggest titles that comes out this year. That's why I think it will be such a win.
Yeah, and we should also point out as well, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition is only coming to last-gen consoles, technically, so PS4, Xbox One, which the way sometimes Stadia's marketed and works, it's still looked at as though it runs on last-gen, so arguably Stadia could be the best place to play it, as well, aside from PC.
It could be, yeah. I think it's weird that it's not coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Give it a year.
Yeah, maybe they've just been smart about it. We're going to focus on getting it running on these platforms first, and once that's done, then we'll focus the effort onto an upgraded version for the new platforms. Hopefully,
let's not do Cyberpunk.
If you're listening here, free of charge, please. No paid upgrades. That's bullshit.
There are some weird ones, because remember the Ubisoft Prince of Persia remake was also only coming to last gen. So there's something weird with, and again, we know with Mass Effect, it's running on Unreal Engine 3.
Yeah.
So there's a weird, will that impact the porting process potentially? And there's a lot to be said, but I would love that. That would be a huge getting out. If that was one of the 5.
Yeah.
Within itself is 3 games. That would be a nice little Russian doll Easter egg of games that we get all just pop out themselves.
The thing is, with Mass Effect, we don't know what the original timeline for this was. It's entirely possible this was meant to be come out end of last year, or even just in the summer, and if for whatever reason they just couldn't commit to it, which might explain why it's Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and not the newer consoles. But I'm holding out hope. I haven't actually pre-ordered Mass Effect because I do have the hope it will come to Stadia. But,
same. You and me are both in the same boat. There's only Tom, I think, out of the 3 of us who has played it, and there's a quiet slate ahead in the summer so far for me as a gamer. There's not massive titles. I didn't jump in on Outriders. I'm currently working my way through some older titles. I started Watch Dogs, but Mass Effect Legendary, aside from Resident Evil, is the kind of next big one that's probably going to see me right through the summer. 3 massive, well-admired games that I'm sure lots of our audience can't wait for, but they want it to come to Stadia. So
this is how impactful Mass Effect could be. I intend to buy this game on release. Whether if it's not available on Stadia, I'll be buying the PS4 edition and probably playing it on my PS5.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, it's 3 massive games. That's several months of gaming where I'm probably going to be dedicated that time more to my PlayStation rather than Stadia. So it's pulling me away from the Stadia ecosystem. Because Stadia have missed out. Yeah.
And this, we don't know. Hopefully not. Potentially miss out, yeah. But
considering we don't know it's coming, I'm assuming that it isn't. I'm holding out hope it will, but until we get told it is coming. Then
I'm thinking for my next pick, I'd probably like to go with The Sims, because we've theorized this a good while back now. I think even back to probably last year when the original EA deal was announced. What game would work so well? And kind of The Sims has almost got this kind of Minecraft-esque world where it lives in perpetuity now. They just add content to it. There doesn't need to be a Sims 5. People just play The Sims. And again, similar to what we said about Star Wars Battlefront, it could just be a platform. It doesn't need, because it doesn't change. Even the original Sims game's not all that different from where we're at now with the 4th iteration.
Yeah.
But for you and me, it was more games that require more keyboard and mouse focus that we think Stadia could thrive with.
Yeah. Do you know when Sims 4 actually came out?
Years ago. Absolute years ago. Because I remember...
2014.
Yeah, so it's living in that...
Yeah, it's a 7-year-old game at this point. But I don't think that impacts The Sims, to be honest.
It's never been the most graphically advanced, high frame rate. It's just you build your house, you kill a family member, you don't get a job, and you live out your mundane life in a digital world.
I don't have The Sims 4, but I do have The Sims 3, and occasionally, even now, jump back into it. And it's not graphically stunning, but it's enjoyable. I mean,
I think
it's very badly optimized because it just my old PC used to scream when I was playing that game.
Yeah, The Sims is one of those franchises when I think about it. I think I have it on it might be The Sims 4, it might be The Sims 3. I have it on an Origin account.
Yeah.
And every other year, my sister will ask for the password for the Origin account to play it. Yeah. That's like the only game she ever plays, bar mobile games, whatever. My wife as well, every now and again, like you said, they get that itch to just go in and create a character, build a world, get a job, and then get bored of it and bounce. But they always go back to it because it's not... It's weird. It's something. The
reason I brought up my old PC screaming when I play The Sims 3 is because it's predominantly a PC game. It definitely works. It's a style game works better with keyboard and mouse. I think it's much more approachable for the casual gamers who are not used to using controllers, but do like The Sims. But they don't want to fork out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds for hardware.
Yeah,
it's built for cloud gaming. Cloud gaming is perfect for The Sims.
It really is, and I know we know cloud gaming works fine, but those people who think dropping frame rates and stuff, it doesn't really impact you in The Sims because it's not frantic first person shooter. Yeah. It's The Sims.
Yeah, and I do sympathise with people who have issues with their internet connections from the ISP, but in the end of the day, I used to have problems with Stadia when I upgraded my home network because I replaced my ISP provided router. And it's seamless now. So sometimes the issues aren't your ISP. A lot of times they are. And I actually would argue a bad router the ISP should be providing a good router. End of story, in my opinion. But sometimes people need to look at their own networking connections. But there again, we're talking like a level of tech that most people are not comfortable with.
Yeah, it's 100%. A good part for The Sims as well is it's already console optimized.
Yeah.
So the whole keyboard, the whole joystick controller layout, they're already designed for that platform. Albeit it's the worst way to play the game.
Yeah.
And keyboard and mouse 100% is the better version. It's already done. So again, it all just rests, I guess, on EA and Stadia's deals and agreements and how long EA intend to push this Sims platform and how much Stadia would like it to show, because at the moment there's only really humankind that we know of that's really doubling down on the PC keyboard mouse aspect of it. So
you could argue there's a lot of things like any first-person shooters usually, but I mean the ones that where it's crystal clear. No, this works better on keyboard and mouse. But I think your sister's a brilliant case study. She's not really a gamer. She does like play The Sims. She probably has either like a fairly just off the shelf laptop or maybe a Chromebook.
A laptop must be 7-8 year old at this point. So
imagine if she just went and bought herself a fairly cheap Chromebook and just wants to occasionally play The Sims, can just open the browser tab and she's away.
Yeah, it is that casual gamer that
you could probably convince her to set up a Stadia account for that, and that might be all she ever plays, but it's a sale.
Yeah, and you can play it on any device as well. So take it on the move.
Play it on the phone.
Yeah. So well, again, Sims is an interesting one. Like I said, I can't believe it's that old.
Yeah.
But
I was surprised when I googled it the age. I thought it was going to be like 2017 or something.
Yeah. But again, I'm sure on my PlayStation, I always see promotions for like the add-on packs and the bundles and the expansions, and it's more microtransactions, arguably, but it keeps the game alive.
I think we're arguably due for new Sims, actually, because the first one was 2000, second was 2004, third was 2009, 4 was 2014. So you're looking like 4 or 5 years between titles. It's been 7 now.
There you go then. You heard it here first. Sims 5 exclusive on Stadia.
Yeah, but there again, the most recent release was Sims 4 Paranormal stuff, which was January this year. So they're still supporting Sims 4.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe they have decided to switch it to being a platform. But anyway, let's move on from the Sims.
Yeah, I'd say speaking of kind of continually supported stuff, the big one that we all thought last summer was like a shoe-in, Apex Legends. So Respawn, who obviously worked on Jedi Fallen Order, so we can't look past that. They have ported a game. Maybe it wasn't 100% them, but one of their titles already exists on Stadia. Remember last year during the Connect, the press journalists, I can't remember what site it was, but the journalists were briefed on Apex Legends, coming to Stadia, and then they had to backtrack on that and say, no, it was a Huffington Post, was it, I think? If memory serves me right. It wasn't like a massively known journalist, but they were told before the presentation that it was the EA. Was it an EA Play event, maybe? They were briefed that it was coming to Stadia, and then they had to totally backtrack. So then you, me, and everyone else in the Stadia creators community were thinking, there can't be smoke without fire. Apex Legends definitely coming. And then with the announcement of it coming to Nintendo Switch, everyone was thinking, it's day and date with the Switch release. That would make sense.
Yeah.
And here we are 7 months later.
Now, in hindsight, I think it's probably whoever was briefing the press misspoke and said Stadia instead of Switch. They probably had their mind on all the different games that were coming to Stadia or talked about. But it's a shame because Apex would be great. I've never really got into it, but I'd love to try it out on Stadia. And it's crossplay.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just bugs me when it's on Switch, especially because Switch is such a lower technical specification piece of equipment, and yet it's on that, albeit it's the worst place to play it, I've heard.
Yeah.
But that's how it's way better. Yeah, way better.
Switch's local hardware is like, when I heard it was coming to Switch, like, really? That's not going to be great. But it just, I don't know. It's the biggest issue with Stadia and multiplayer gaming, online gaming, is currently just the amount of people in it. Crossplay resolves that issue instantly. And unlike PUBG, which we've had an absolute blast in PUBG, but PUBG was it was no longer in the spotlight when it came to Stadia. Apex is still one of the biggest games on the planet.
Yeah, seasonal content,
and it doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. So
and it's that's what they wanted to happen with Anthem. Yeah, they wanted it to just take off and flourish and have seasonal content and basically relive that Fortnite model of season content passes, cosmetic DLC purchases, and it's thriving. It brought the ping system, Richie.
It did. It brought the ping system. A brilliant idea that has basically been incorporated into every other game now.
Who would have knew? Such a simple thing.
It's such a simple way of communicating with people. Like, especially if you don't use a headset or anything, you don't want to get screamed at by a 12-year-old.
Go there.
Yeah.
So Apex Legends then, do we think?
I don't know.
At the time Stadia got another big open battle royale-esque game.
Yeah, I was really optimistic last summer. At the moment, I'm not, because it feels like Stadia's user base is kind of plateauing. And I'll be in like the Facebook groups, and I'll hear people constantly having problems getting online games for pretty much everything apart from Destiny.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't think EA would have much of an incentive at the moment, unfortunately, to bring it. Stadia absolutely would.
Yeah.
But if it's a difficult port, and then you've got to think about patching and the upkeep of it.
Yeah, it's the ongoing support that I love. That we've heard it from Activision and such. They've said the reason they wouldn't is just because it's not a case of just the game's done and we can now leave it to flourish. It needs to keep going back to it for continual support, which it costs time, money, developers, and it's a lot more plates to spin with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it. I really would. I think it would be such a good. It'd be a good place for Apex and a good place for Stadia to get. I think it would be a win-win. The only downside I would think would be is if financially viable, unfortunately. Which then you get in this weird chicken and egg situation. It's like you need games like Apex to come to the platform to get people invested in the multiplayer in the platform. But if people are invested in the multiplayer in the platform, things like Apex aren't going to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go into any depth on another one. I just want to run off a couple of franchises that I think we can just put a line under. They're not going to come for whatever reason over. So the theme park and theme hospital series, can't see them coming. They're all franchises, but I wanted to mention them because they're awesome games.
Yeah,
Dead Space again. It's a dead franchise.
Yeah, I think it's due a resurgence. It's due a remake or a legendary edition similar to Mass Effect. But I think it's
Dead Space Dead Space 4 could carve itself a new niche in the video game industry. It has the potential as an IP, but it's one of them. EA messed with it, tried to get more people in because of survival horror at a time when people weren't that into survival horror. But with things like the resurgence of Resident Evil, I think Dead Space could do something.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, the A Way Out, the Joseph Fares games from, I think it's a Torchlight Studios, A Way Out, It Takes Two, but they're very much couch co-op, and I don't think that's Stadia's focused demographic at the moment. It obviously can do couch co-op, but I don't think that's what they're looking to push. So
I don't think
It Takes Two is great as well.
I don't think they'd do the numbers on Stadia, like for either party to really be that interested. They're great. I think they're almost like great. They're great titles from what I've heard. But if you're Stadia and you've got 5 to pick from, they're going to be your 5.
Yeah, they're smaller, more indie titles, as EA say. It's because part of the EA Originals program, which EA exclusively said that we only make these games because of the profits we make from the other games. That's the kind of way of saying that. We rinse your microtransactions and cosmetics and the FUT seasons in FIFA and Madden and everything else to fund smaller projects like this. So take that how you will, but it's an interesting way of pushing your games.
Burnout is...
I think, Burnout again, I think it's a dormant franchise for now. And similar with us talking driving games akin to Need for Speed, because they've exclusively said this past month that they're taking people like Criterion away from Need for Speed to work on other projects. So I don't think we're going to see a Need for Speed game this year. It'll probably take a hiatus for another 12 months.
I think these franchises in the next maybe 2 or 3 years could make a resurgence since EA have bought Codemasters.
I think that's their grand plan, yeah.
Yeah, because Codemasters are basically... They're the pinnacle in racing games, from what I can tell. As someone who's not really into racing games, but what I've played are things like Grid, mainly Grid actually on Stadia.
Yeah,
it works. They're really good at it. So
it's their bread and butter essentially. So I think Need for Speed, as much as I do think Need for Speed is a core EA franchise, and I think it's a tentpole that would be great to have on the platform. The recent entries, I think Need for Speed Heat was reviewed okay, but it didn't sell. I don't think the numbers they were hoping for. So,
I think it's just a genre that is generally in a bit of decline. But these things are cyclical. They'll come back.
Yeah, it's like every movie genre, isn't it? It just goes in big cycles. Something will always come. Fashion always comes back around. So the big only final one we've not spoke about is probably my most.
There's a couple actually. I know the one you're going to go on to, but I want to mention Dragon Age first.
Oh yeah.
Because again, it's a huge EA franchise. I don't know about this because 1 and 2 are kind of 2 didn't do well at all. That game was pretty poor, to be honest. 1 is one of my favorite games of all time, but would be feel very dated on the platform. So that would be due for me a remaster or a remake rather than a straight up port because it's just a bit old. And 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, it was early the last generation. So I think that's why I'm kind of ruling that one out. Again, it'd be nice to see it come across, but I actually played that on PC because I didn't even have a PlayStation when that game came out. That's how early it was.
That was a long ago, yeah. I've never played a Dragon Age game, so I'd be very interested to see how that would look.
If the remaster Dragon Age Origins, you should play that. For me, it's by far the strongest in the franchise.
Well, they're working on a new one, aren't they? So it's kind of like this EA deal with Stadia. I know we're expecting the games soon, but for all we know, the agreement could be to bring whatever their next massive franchise is or their new entry in it. So it might take a while, but if that means we see the next Dragon Age instead, or we see the next instead, I'm happy to wait for that.
Yeah, but I kind of think that would be a weird... I mean, Stadia are good at weird decisions. it'd be a weird decision to have like Dragon Age 4, which is still probably at least a year or two away from where we are now, to have that in the 5 that you announced a year ago, unless you announced it was one of them.
Yeah, and this is where kind of like just a bit more, maybe an update a year to the day. You said just come out with a Connect hopefully this summer.
You get idiots like us on the internet. You're overly speculating on this sort of stuff. Oh, we've got 5 things coming to. Like, well, we're not including Dragon Age because that's miles away.
Well, because but let's face it. I'd imagine the general people who watch Stadia, the only reason they remember it being 5 is because we remember it's 5. And even then, sometimes I question over the last few months, like, did he actually say 5? Were we told 5, or is that just something people have fabricated? But we went back, we watched the YouTube video, April 28th. He explicitly says 5 games.
We had to find. We couldn't remember which show it was on, but we found it.
We did our research for you, lovely viewers and listeners.
Plants vs Zombies? Yeah,
no. I mean, actually, maybe I write it off, but that's just because I didn't play them. But it's unmistakably, it's aimed at a younger audience, and we've seen there's a lot of games in the pipeline like Ben 10, the DreamWorks Dragons. So there are games aimed at a younger audience, and Plants vs Zombies falls into that. I love the original game on the phone, but I've never really put that much time.
Like the kind of tower defense one before it started. Like
the OG game. Yeah, now it's like Call of Duty mixed with Plants vs Zombies, and if I was a kid, I'd love it.
Yeah, this is why I actually think this could have been, but it seems like odd timing now. If it was in the last year, Plants vs Zombies game came out, then I could have seen it happening. But I think it'd be a weird one to fall off the list at this point. Yeah. So that's why I would be random.
It would be seem very random, wouldn't it?
Skate, I don't think that. I don't think it's Skate.
I mean, again, it's the new Skate games in development, but again, probably another 2 year off potentially. So, but this is us thinking it's going to come soon.
Yeah, I don't think I said this, but I think my assumption is when you go to Phil Harrison stands up in the Connect and goes, "We've got 5 EA titles coming to the platform." I'm assuming a 12-month time period in that.
Yeah,
unless a game's being delayed and pushes it outside that window. But I think when he says that, his expectation at that moment is he's got 5 EA games coming within the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the scope for any public announcement. A year seems like the average expectancy for if otherwise, why say it? Say 3 and then surprises with the 2 next year.
If you asked me this time last year, and it's entirely possible I said this on the podcast, I didn't do that much research. It's entirely possible I would have assumed that would be within last year, within 2020, that these 5 games would come out.
Yeah, I think that's what we all thought.
Yeah, but then obviously FIFA and Madden were getting put back.
And COVID, let's not forget.
We got Jedi Fallen Order last year, and COVID, so let's round this out by talking about Battlefield.
The big one, and I think the reason Battlefield's probably the big one, for me it's probably the most likely of all the titles we've just discussed, purely because there's a new game on the horizon coming out this year. It's a big AAA game. It fits the timelines we've just spoke about. Stadia needs a big shooter, in my opinion, and I think the Battlefield games are great, and probably more so because we spoke about it on the podcast this past week, episode 83, that we haven't yet recorded. But we're definitely going to talk about it because it was in the news. And we're probably going to discuss with our special guest, Avery from Stadia Source, that, I think Battlefield, it ticks all the boxes. Yeah. It's new, it's current, it's AAA, it's an EA game.
it fills that niche, that Call of Duty niche, that isn't that military shooter, which Stadia is lacking. The closest we've got to military shooting Stadia at the moment is Sniper Elite.
Yeah. Which is a great game, but it's not got the polish or the marketing power. Like the marketing that EA put into the Battlefield franchise as well is huge. Because they always try and go toe-to-toe with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So to do that, you need the financial clout. And EA usually do it. And we had a year off last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a good way of making inroads onto the platform where actually it becomes people who play in Stadia play Battlefield over Call of Duty because it was there first.
Yeah. You get
so very quickly, just to round up the show, Chris, I need 2 picks from you, what you think they were or are, and 2 picks that you would prefer.
Oh, Oh, that's a good one. Obviously, Battlefield seems to be that's my
both.
definite shoe-in, I would hope.
Yeah.
Out of the ones you described, I do honestly think we'll get Apex.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time until they get that kind of all the ducks in order. I hope that, so they're my two. I think it'll be Apex and Battlefield, just because they're the two biggest ones, and they're in the public eye, and they're current and modern, and it works. My hope, I would quite easily swap out, selfishly, Apex for the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, similar to what we discussed a few minutes back. That it's 3 huge games. They come with a lot of legacy, pun intended, I guess. And I'd love, and it's 3 titles in one, so it's kind of like a cheeky way of breaking the deal alongside it. And still, Battlefield will be my other one I'd love to see. So, but in amongst that, if it's another aside from all that, if it's another FIFA and another Madden game, 22, I'll have a very bitter taste in my mouth, if I'm honest.
So for me, I think the 2 that were planned, I think will have been Anthem and probably Apex. And I think they may have been based on like performance metrics for multiplayer games. Well, Anthem's probably getting pulled for Anthem reasons. I think they may be holding out on Apex, but until it was worthwhile. That might have been why they got when the press briefing got wrong. There were the ones I think it was planned. What I would like to see is probably Mass Effect and Apex.
Awesome stuff. Exciting times. Yeah. Hopefully soon then, because like I said, we're at the year anniversary of Phil's statement.
Yeah.
And we've heard nothing about a new Kinect, nothing more about what EA games potentially they are. And quite frankly, aside from like the odd promotion like the Resident Evil one, it's been very quiet. So hopefully E3. We're all hoping for E3. Big June blowout. There's no doubt another EA Play on the horizon too. So hopefully we'll hear some news from some party.
Yeah.
Somebody tell us what's happening.
We want to know. Anyway,
I just want to know what games I can play.
That's all we have time for. Let us know what you think they were and what you would prefer them to be in the comments below. Make sure you like the video. We do have membership, so from as little as 99p, you can become a member of this very channel, in which case you get a nice little Stadia controller next to your name and custom emojis.
Ooh,
and also
early
access to SideQuest.
You do. Well, yeah, exactly. You could be listening to this 5 days early right now.
It's very important.
It's a critical part of our membership program.
With that, I've been Richie.
I've been Chris.
Thank you very much for watching. Quest completed.